All right, everybody, welcome back. That's right. This is the Then They Fight You Pleb Underground live special. I am going to be joined by Sir Ulrich and Humble Bitcoiner, and hopefully Walton might be fashionably late. And we are going to be discussing this ECB paper, the distributional consequences of Bitcoin by Ulrich Binseal and Jürgen Schaff. Anyways, first, let's bring on the fellow guests and let's get to talking. Here we go.
What's up?
What's happening, Ulrich? What's happening, Humble?
Hello.
All right.
Oh, man. Ulrich always doing some wild stuff, man. Ulrich's always doing some wild stuff. I don't get it, man. I just
Very
don't
nice.
get it.
Those Ulrich. Man.
Wait. Which Ulrich are you talking about? You're talking about Ulrich Binseal. Okay, sorry. I'm getting confused. I'm totally getting confused here.
All according to my plan.
Yes, of course. All right, so here we go. Let's get started right away, right? Essentially, this, I think it was 2 weeks ago, the ECB dropped this paper, which very interestingly sounds a lot like a lot of the rhetoric that we've heard in the similar vein, right? That essentially Bitcoin is some type of an attack on the current financial system, and that somehow the very existence of Bitcoin seems to, kind of harm the world. So kind of on that same vein, right? We're going to start off with this. The ECB claim that early adopters steal economic value from essentially latecomers. Okay. Now, this is a very interesting divisive narrative, okay? Because essentially what it does is that it immediately creates this idea of an us and them, okay? When really, as we know, Bitcoin is for anyone, really, but not necessarily everyone, which we can dive into that as well. But the point being is that anybody who needs Bitcoin in order to perform a financial service that for some reason the current legacy system will not allow, okay, or for whatever other reason, well, we can use Bitcoin to do that, and essentially, I lost my train of thought. So we'll go from there, right? We'll go from the fact that these people, essentially, the ECB is criminalizing Bitcoin behavior, and it's creating this us and them scenario. Okay, let's start with that. Ulrich, what are your thoughts while I gather mine?
Yeah, no, it's okay. I'm trying to release a video on this in a few days as well. I know you already had one a few days ago. I moved slower, but when I see this kind of stuff, I'm like, in 2012, Bitcoin was for criminals. In 2016, Bitcoin's too volatile. In 2020, 2021, Bitcoin's bad for the environment. And now we're pushing to 2025, 2024 Bitcoin. It's unfair now. There's always a narrative that seems to pull at the people who are taking risk, are seeing things that the traditional financial markets don't see because they're using some antiquated formulas to play their fiat games. And what they don't see is that their egotism has blinded them to the fact that their system has essentially run its course. And so now, we're at the precipice of a bull market. I mean, if you think we're done, you ain't seen nothing yet. And I think they're smelling it, and they're like, man, we've been sitting on our hands for years watching this thing, waiting for it to die. It ain't dying. And so so they have to drum up public support, animosity to paint honest people who have taken honest risk as the bad guys. It's sad, but it's expected.
So let me ask you this: do you think they actually believe the rhetoric that they're spinning? Like, do you actually believe, or like, do you actually think that they believe that somehow Bitcoin's very existence and the people who chose to take a risk in owning it and understanding it? Like, what are your thoughts?
Oh, I think you can
Do you
believe
really they believe this?
you can believe anything you set your heart to. Like, especially when you're considering like money is just it's just it's an abstraction. So when you think about that, if you can money is trust. So if they can trust if they can say it 1,000 times, you look in the mirror and you repeat something to yourself, you can absolutely believe it. You can convince yourself to believe anything. And I think that what's going to end up happening is this this reality is impacted by their by how they frame it. And it doesn't, if it goes to $1,000,000, it doesn't matter. Somehow they'll see it as bad, even though a lot of people, their lives have changed, but they'll paint the picture as, well, it's bad. It's not harming anyone. It didn't boil the oceans, but because they didn't benefit from it, they're going to paint that picture. And that's what it boils down to. That's why everything, whether it's precious metals captured, whether it's stocks, equities, bonds captured. So even no matter whoever gets rich, those central authorities always have a cut, but they ain't got a cut on Bitcoin, and it's driving them crazy. So yeah, I think they do believe it.
Yeah, I get. Sometimes I don't know. So sometimes I'm really not sure, but I obviously can't disagree with you, right, about the fact that it's not something that they can entirely control, but it is something that they can benefit from, right? Like, let's be honest, if we take a look at El Salvador, putting the conversation we're having aside, right? We look at El Salvador. El Salvador is, for all intents and purposes, in terms of Bitcoin, doing something pretty positive with Bitcoin and showing that a government can govern, but also use Bitcoin, which is not under their control. And yet here we see the ECB tightening their grip. And essentially, to me, what really bothers me about this is this, right? It's the demonizing of Bitcoiners. It's this framing, this dangerous framing, right? That somehow you as a Bitcoiner, you decided to buy Bitcoin and somehow you're stealing something from somebody who actually has nothing to do with Bitcoin, right? Like, Bitcoiners aren't stealing value from no coiners. This is the the mind F, right, of reality, because all they're doing is the governments are printing money. So it's not Bitcoiners stealing your value. Like, prices have been going up long before Bitcoin's existence as we know. So I don't know. I get very afraid because, essentially it doesn't take much to motivate people to action.
And
And if you choose,
before you go
yeah,
to humble, I do want to say that in my
yes,
opinion, Bitcoin is stealing, and it is stealing essentially power and control from the central bank. And El Salvador didn't have a central bank, and so if they can somehow create this communism dynamic with people and align people with the central bank, it's like, look, they're stealing from us. It's like, we're together in a depression, but when the economy is good, then every man for himself. So it's like they're framing things, they're moving the pawns from one place to another depending on what their narrative is at the moment. So I do think that, yeah, Bitcoin is stealing from central bank authorities. El Salvador was under the dollar standard for 25 years. So, they had nothing to lose essentially. When a country just makes a decision to end their central bank and adopt Bitcoin, that's a major move. And we haven't seen that yet. So, I still think that, Bitcoin is taking some value away from them, and it's going to hurt them more and more the longer a central bank essentially exists. That's why I've always thought that the central banking and Bitcoin is mutually exclusive.
yeah. Humble, what are your thoughts on this first piece about essentially us Bitcoiners stealing away from the poor no coiners?
Yeah, I think that they're stealing from us. I think the banks are stealing from us, and they don't like it. they don't like us. They don't like Bitcoin. It's, I mean, kind of what I mean. Obviously, you guys have touched on these points already, but they won't have the authority over us anymore, or over their currency. So, in any form, they just want to have control on everything. So, starting to sound like Kamala Harris. Sorry, I was like distracted. I'm like sitting. I was like,
What?
I'm trying to like
You
retweet.
don't worry, you don't sound like Kamala.
No, I know. I was trying to like sign into the chat, and then I forgot my password, so I'm like, all over the place. Yeah,
This
so
is working.
I know.
It's okay. I forgot what I was saying on the first thing I was saying, so
That's
don't feel
okay.
All
bad.
y'all Kamala. I'm not Kamala.
This is part of the
No.
live stuff. Okay, this is how live rolls.
They
Okay,
want control.
things don't
They
work
had
and everybody
control
loves it.
yesterday, and they have control today, and they want control tomorrow.
These are true
So
statements.
they are. I mean, it's,
Yeah.
and I will never forget that. So, but yeah, I mean, ultimately, they're trying to do the digital euro, so it's competition, right? It's absolute competition. So why would anybody use that if they found Bitcoin? There's no reason. There just isn't. So, I mean, there's definitely so many reasons why they're going to hate on it, and it's very frustrating, but very much expected. I know, you found Tour Demister. I don't know if I pronounce his name right. Is it Tour? Like Tuur?
Or is it Tur?
Tour. Yeah. Anyways,
I don't know.
that
My
gentleman
name's Ulrich.
who I am. Yes,
That's hard enough.
I know. Don't put the additional you in there. I don't know what it's for. So, the tweets that you had pulled up from him, he's just furious about it. Essentially, I mean, he said this is like the worst take he's ever seen. So, I mean, it's a serious thing, and I wonder like what is so different from times past. I mean, I'm class of 2021, so like, what have you guys seen in the past where they have talked about these things, and why is there so much more importance placed on this being like a crazy take and very threatening? That's for either of you guys to comment on.
Well, I think I'll go first because Phil is probably has been around longer than me. I mean, essentially, it's either bad for the environment or it was about the sovereignty of the local currency. So, I'm remembering the 2017, 2018 timeframe. Trump was like, no, we don't mess with no cryptocurrency. We don't mess with no Bitcoin. And that was sort of that whole negative press from the executive branch was sort of like, yeah, this is the beginning of the bear market. The ICOs were not coming together. It was easy to kick cryptocurrency in general while it was down. So I don't think that. I think this is just a part of the cycle where like there's a coping dynamic from the powers that be, and they're going to come up with whatever news brief, whatever kind of story they need to keep people in the system, and that's the catch. Keep people in the system where they can drop a CBDC on them, where they can surveil them easier, and the more people that opt out, the less likely they're coming back. I don't know any Bitcoiner that adopted Bitcoin. It's like, oh yeah, I really want to go back to that fiat system. So I don't know. What about you, Phil?
Real quick, Phil.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
And I just wanted to read the tweet that I was referencing. So we can post, well, I can't because obviously I can't sign into the chat because I don't know my password. I'll figure that out. But so his post was on October 19th. And he said, in all the years I've been monitoring the Bitcoin space, this is by far the most aggressive paper to come from authorities. The gloves are off. It's clear that these central bank economists now see Bitcoin as an existential threat to be attacked with any means possible. So, I mean, to me, that was like, whoa, that's he's pretty ticked off about that. So anyways, just wanted to read that for the audience. Go ahead, Phil. Sorry.
No, don't apologize at all. I mean, look, I think Tur did a great, right? He explained it very well, and he did a good job of summarizing everything. And I'll tell you this, okay? This to me is what the difference is. In the past, especially when I first got into Bitcoin, it was a giant joke. Like people, like you'd see people in legacy finance just laughing it off and like, yeah, whatever. They're thinking of Beanie Babies, and that Beanie Babies meme was huge, and everybody was having a good old time with that shit. And then of course, right, it became a little bit more serious, and then all of a sudden it just became this this kind of esoteric, well, it doesn't matter that people are actually paying attention to it because and then throw in all these different reasons, and then of course we saw the climate change stuff. But the reason why this in particular, right, I just glossed over 15 years of FUD with 3 points, but the reason why this is so different this time is because we are being branded, okay, as like evil to the point that it is divisive to society. Okay, I want you to think about that. Think about that for a second, okay? As a person that is choosing to essentially store their time, value, energy, okay, not in the traditional methods, you are somehow this evil parasite from society because you don't want to allow your time value to be stolen. Like, how much of a psyop, like how much gaslighting is this? It's just completely insane. So yeah, to me, that's why this paper. So okay, it's kind of, I guess the point I'm trying to make is this, right? It's a bit of a double-edged sword. Part of it is a nothing burger in my eyes because they can't do shit. That's the honest to God truth. They can't do anything. But this gets into people's heads that aren't actually doing both sides of the research, right? That aren't looking at Bitcoin objectively, right? Because it's very difficult to unlearn what you've learned. I've said this before. I grew up in Canada, and when I did 8th grade economics, right? The government prints money. That's how that works. It's how money exists. So, trying to undo this, you already need to have a willingness, right? And you need to think about how many people really have that willingness to go through and accept that. Because unfortunately, accepting this stuff also means that you also have to accept that you've been kind of getting played. Right? Like, everybody's been getting played. The people you love the most have been getting played, right? You've been getting played. It's, radical acceptance. Anyways, I'm sorry. That was a whole long-winded way to say that this is why I think that this is different, right? It puts a different type of bug in people's ear. Okay? Like, we've been psychopaths before. We've been energy wasters. We've been clowns, but now all of a sudden we're evil. Like, we're insanely evil. So, all because we just don't want to get robbed from. Sorry.
What's funny is that it's funny because they say that Bitcoin is divisive to society, and I forgot the quote, and I don't have my notes ready because it says like they should be. It's what would you say? What did they say? I gotta say this part because it's like they would cause. Oh yeah, they will feel a malaise and frustration that will contribute further to an ever more split society. And you kind of referenced that as well, Phil. But I'm thinking like, we're in a situation where the 1%ers own 40, 50% of all assets in the world. The next 10% own the next 48%. And then the last 50% of all people own 2%. We're more split than we ever have been because of fiat currency, not because of Bitcoin. And so it's a big case of projection. It's a big case of projection because they really did. I mean, the funny thing, and we'll go through this in the paper if we step through it in a methodical way, but they in section 3 they started breaking down all these esoteric, like really complicated formulas to try to prove their point. And they talked about the way that you calculate value in Keynesian, in a Keynesian sort of fashion. They were talking about the examples of real estate gives yield, stocks give dividends, and Bitcoin doesn't give anything. It just sits there. And I'm like, they're showing their playbook of how bad their playbook has been in terms of establishing what is value. They've been wrong. Economics has been skewed partially on purpose to enrich the cantillionaires, partially because their formulas are bad. And so now we have this new thing that doesn't work with their formulas, yet still it shows that its value continues to grow and grow over time with adoption and just by pure value scarcity economics. I'm sorry, value scarcity and demand economics. I just feel like I think they're kind of waking up to like maybe we've been wrong. We, the central bankers, have been wrong the whole time. And this is a combination of like fighting back in the corner and kind of like a self-realization, like, oh man, like I'm a PhD and I'm supposed to be able to run the world with all my knowledge and I'm wrong. And it's eye-opening. And I think you're going to probably see in the next cycle, you'll probably see some central bankers like kind of defect and like, hey man, I've been in this world for 20 years and I gotta say we've been wrong the whole time.
It's interesting because they have been wrong the whole time. We kind of know that they've been wrong. Sorry, I'm probably cutting out because I'm sitting.
You sound fine.
Okay. But they have this emphasis on the early adopters, right? So the early adopters of Bitcoin are the bad guys. They're like the really bad guys. So it's like this psychology of, so those of you who were considering getting into Bitcoin, or those of you that got in somewhat recently, man, those other guys are just taking you, they're going to benefit and you guys aren't going to benefit at all. So it's like speaking in my mind, like it's speaking to this like social, the emotions, we're seeing so much of that with, what's happening in the US with the elections. There's all this emotion on one side, I'll say, it's not going to, you guys know what I'm talking about. Like let's focus on these emotional issues that are happening here. And nobody's paying attention to the fact that we could lose our status as world reserve currency. I mean, it's just like, okay, cool. You guys worry about your, whatever. I'm not going to go down that road. So you know what I mean? Like they're worrying and fighting about issues that they're going to have a lot more problems than they just don't even understand. So when I read this and I see the benefiting early adopters at the expense of latecomers, it's like, oh, okay. Yeah. Because what latecomers want to hear that statement. And if they really don't know what Bitcoin is, they could think, oh, this is a scam. What's the deal? Nobody told me about this. What do they mean? Because obviously if it's something they're bringing up now, why didn't they bring this up before? Why didn't they have this concern before when they were talking about all these issues? Now it's a talking point, but it wasn't before. So it's a last ditch effort to really get people to get pissed off, right? That's kind of what I'm viewing it as.
No, I think that's a good point, right? It's like, okay, well, let's hit people in their pocketbooks because that's what they care about. Look, if Bitcoin's around, you may get poorer, you will get poorer. And actually along that same vein, right? There was another tweet in the thread, essentially, and again, this is more BS numbers. Essentially, what they do is they show the emission schedule, right? Essentially, the block reward halvings and everything, how there's less and less rewards and whatnot, and of course, it's only going to be 21 million Bitcoin, and they're essentially playing to the point of look what's going to be left for the latecomers, scraps. It's like you realize this is a finite asset, right? That's like to the 8th decimal point. Like people, it's just this framing, right? Essentially creating this idea that for some reason, like once you have Bitcoin, you're never going to use it. It always stays consolidated into the hands of the very specific people who got it for. Like it's this weird, like you're wondering, like, what are these people on? Like nothing else in the world works like this, but yet in the magical world of Bitcoin, we just hold all of our corn forever and everyone else is a slave. Like
that
what?
seems to be what people think that MicroStrategy is going to do with all their Bitcoin. They're just going to hold it forever and keep on stacking forever and ever and ever and ever. We're going to have to go live on MicroStrategy next time. Oh my!
Yeah, God. No, well, definitely. Oh man, if you only saw the hates, people get really upset, man. When you insult their hopium dealer, man, somebody was like, "You're crying about Michael Saylor." It's like, really, just because I'm being objective about not being a cheerleader, like. Anyways, all right. It's not about Michael Saylor. Not about politics. Yeah, we're coming back. The ECB is evil. Okay, coming back.
Horse blinders.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. All right. I think we did service to that talking point, or do we have anything else to say? Is Are we making it impossible for the quote unquote latecomers? Actually, no. You know what? Even before I go there, one of the points I make, especially when I interview people who came to Bitcoin early on, I always ask them how they felt. Okay. And every single person, I don't care whether it was 2011, whether it was 2013, 2015, 2017, we all sound the same. Every single one of us sounds the same. And you know what that is? I was too late. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter, because once you understand it, you cannot help that feeling. So just embrace it, understand it, right? That's how we feel. All right. We're too late, but that doesn't stop us from stacking now. And that's what we do. You know, it's essentially cope stacking. This is what I've been doing for 7 years. Oh God. Okay. I'm sorry. Anyways, next point.
Before we go on to the next point, can I just I gotta reference this group chat. Yeah, you quote Yellow. Phil just said 9/11, but Yellow's been saying all kinds of wild stuff, sort of um, indirectly towards Humble and Yellow. Do you guys have some sort of online beef that you wish to divulge on?
Oh my God, is he really that little stinker? What
Congrats,
the
Phil
hell?
and Ulrich. I didn't know you. Fred Dirks was a Bitcoiner. Great booking. Yellow likes this live stream only due to Phil and Ulrich. Oh my gosh. I'm like reading this like, oh my, this is what I get for not living on Bitcoin Twitter. I miss all of the drama.
I made Yellow cry today.
Heaven forbid.
I made him cry, and then he cried and he cried, and then he went into another space that was like a crypto space, and he was crying in the crypto. He was getting counseling by these people. He doesn't even know. He's like, so I had this friend. I'm not even gonna do it. It's crazy.
Yellow's calling bullshit on that. He's saying he doesn't know what you're talking about.
Oh no! And then I recommended that he I put a picture of some testosterone supplements that he might want to start trying to get rid of his feminine energy. And I think he didn't like that very much.
Gosh, these are fighting words.
Thank you for the digest. Yellow, please stick with us. You're a great influencer. We want you to retweet this live show. Okay.
Yeah, that'd be great, because I can't log in and do it myself. Otherwise I would. I'm having issues.
So yeah, anyways, I'm sorry. But what's
okay,
the next?
It's like an in between, right? It's lets everybody cool down, you know. Somebody's got to go get a drink. Somebody's got to go to the washroom. You don't know, you know. It's all part of the fun. Okay, all right. So moving on, let's go here. The next thing is we're going to talk about. All right. So the other point that they made, that was made, I shouldn't say they. Everybody hates they. Okay. The other point that was made, okay, by these two authors, is essentially about Bitcoin as an investment speculation, right? Essentially that it has shifted away from its core purpose of being a payment system, right? And has turned into this speculative thing that could be seen as a store of value. And again, right, I think that this is disingenuous framing. This is the same. I don't know about you guys, but it kind of sounds like Bcash to me. That's like the second that like people start implying that only one of these qualities is Bitcoin and not the sum of its parts, that's when I start to call a red flag. So again, this is more of the rhetoric of this failed thing that we need to get rid of. Yeah, people are speculating on it, but just didn't live up to its hype. What are your guys' thoughts on this? Is Bitcoin failed as a payment system as the ECB likes to paint it? And is it just going to be a bubble that's going to burst? This is obviously to both of you, whoever wants to go first.
Humble, if you want to go, but I can go if you want.
No, I mean, the only thing I had to that is like, using the term, it's a bubble waiting to burst. Again, it's that terminology that everyone's familiar with and everyone gets freaked out about, right? Yeah. So it's just, okay, cool. Yeah, nobody wants to be in like, they keep on trying to compare Bitcoin to something, and there's nothing like Bitcoin. And so they are always drawing these comparisons and using these words. And it's like, okay, well, sometimes it's applicable, but these words like bubble, like, okay, really, why? Mm-hmm. Tell me why. Tell me how that's going to happen. And they don't need to provide any evidence as to how that's actually going to happen. They just need to put the word in there to freak people out.
Yeah, they really broke down that bubble concept a lot, and they even reserved reserved the opportunity for them to be wrong. Where it's just in case
Mhm,
it's not a bubble and this is actually the real deal, then they
mhm.
go into like society's going to break because the haves and the have-nots, which we already have anyways. But going back to the payment layer or to the settlement layer, I mean, if we just call Bitcoin for what it is or what it was intended to be, which was peer-to-peer transactions, yes, but Satoshi knew that there was going to be evolutions on Bitcoin. He knew that they were going to build on Bitcoin before Lightning was ever created. Satoshi disappeared before all these other layer twos were created. Satoshi, opted out and said, I'm not here anymore. Blah blah blah. But if we just focus on Bitcoin was designed to be secure first and stable first, and talk about the speed of transactions later, it's doing what it's designed to do. And if you compare its settlement layer with settlement layers of our current system, we like to compare Bitcoin settlement with our fiat payments, but we have settlement. Bank transfers, for instance, we have ACH in America, we have SEPA in Europe, and those settle between 2 to 5 days. Wire transfers, 2 to 5 days. Check payments, we all of us older millennials and Gen Xers, if we wrote a check, 2 to 5 days, you could write a check. It's like, oh, I wonder when that money is coming out of my account. 2 to 5 days. What is Bitcoin settlement? 10 minutes. 10 minutes or roughly 10 minutes when the next block is found. So our settlement layer is actually faster and cheaper than their settlement layers. And when you talk about their payment layers like Visa or MasterCard versus Lightning, we beat them still. Now they do have something called real-time payments in America and Target 2 in Europe. And these are essentially their, like it says, RTP, real-time payments that can actually settle instantly. But the catch is they don't even use that unless you are transacting millions of dollars or euros. So in a nutshell, the fiat system has some really good technology, but unless you are in the wealthiest of elite, you're not going to benefit from that. So it's like Bitcoin is truly for the people, by the people. Just like what the Declaration of Independence was supposed to be, or was that the Constitution? I forget. But these founding principles of what liberty is supposed to be. Thank you. I saved myself, but thank you for confirming that.
I recently did the test like 5-6 years ago. So.
Okay, there you go. You're so highly regarded. Oh, my goodness. Ouch, my ribs. And long story.
Sorry.
Okay.
We don't want Ulrich to laugh. We just need this boring and slow. Sorry.
I broke my ribs on Wednesday playing basketball, so I should be fine. But anyways, feel bad for me. Retweet it or something. But anyway, so long story short, which is already long, fiat benefits the elite, the privileged, the wealthy. Bitcoin is for the people, by the people, and they are trying to frame it so that the people, the numb, unaware, uneducated people, are either going to opt into that, oh yeah, that people's money, or they're going to say, oh yeah, we love our Stockholm syndrome, gatekeepers and prison guards. Bitcoin is its own great marketing concept. It works. It doesn't need, the big marketing platforms of Swan or Samson or Bitcoin Magazine or whomever. It's like Bitcoin, just by the fact that it works, people are recognizing. It's like, that sucker, I heard about that thing 4 years ago. It ain't died yet. Wait, I thought it died with FTX. Why is it going to an all-time high? People are going to realize that there's something about this, and they'll come to see, hey, it's time to go. And the central bankers are going to try to grab onto as many souls as possible, but every day there's a new person adopting Bitcoin, and they ain't coming back.
Yeah, very well said. Very well said. And don't worry about being long-winded, okay? Sometimes it's nice to get a
I'm
full thought out,
Oh, I'm
right?
sorry.
It's good to get the full thought. It's like, yes, I started it and I finished it.
I feel
You know,
guilty in
so
spaces.
don't, yeah, don't. We're not in spaces. People, we're not in spaces here, all right? Nobody's gonna new topic you here. New topic. But yeah,
Let me land
so
this plane. Let me land this plane. No.
yeah, exactly. Let them cook. But yeah, so look, in the end, right? When it comes to the ECB, and it comes to this narrative, unfortunately, right? I say unfortunately. I guess it's for them. It's unfortunate. They fell for an old narrative. They fell for an old debunked narrative. And what bothers me about it is this, right? You have to really look at Bitcoin from a 10,000-foot view to not fall for the tunnel vision. It's like I remember when I first got into it, and people would start telling you, well, look, Bitcoin's really great, if you want to send some massive amount of money, but you can't do this smart contract stuff on it, and stuff like that. We need to be able to do that. So really, like we should have it so that it does this, and in the end, did you really need it to do those things? No. This thing is it's an emerging asset. It's an emerging digital asset that none of us fully understands. So this whole idea that all of a sudden we've placed this artificial box that it must fit in, and if it doesn't fit into this box, then it cannot go forward. Uh, Sorry, like this thing is emerging, so it is going to evolve. So yeah, maybe right now we see fee spikes because people are doing objective or subjective, however you want to see it, nonsense on the blockchain. That's happening now, but that's not really an indicator of the future activity that will be done on Bitcoin. And this whole idea that, like, well, it failed this narrative, it's over. It's just nonsense. It sounds a lot like the BS from when we had COVID, right? Like the whole COVID thing happened, countries locked down, boom, Bitcoin crashes. It just tanks, right? Drops like 50, 60%. All of a sudden, all the legacy media is like, oh, Bitcoin failed the COVID test. And what? Not even 6 months later, we're almost touching all new all-time highs. So what are you talking about? So what? It didn't fit into your box. It's dead. So this is kind of the point, right? They're trying to catch as many people as they can into this net, like this net of a BS narrative. And there you go. Whoever you catch, great. And whoever you don't, well, you're going to spin some other BS narrative that's going to catch them, right? If it isn't this thing as a failed payments, maybe the climate change stuff works. So yeah. Anyways, Humble, any final thoughts before we? I guess maybe we'll move on to the next piece.
No, I'm incredibly distracted trying to sign into chat because I need to say something to Yellow. So I'm sorry.
Yellow.
Yeah. You just wait, Yellow.
I can't wait.
Mm-hmm.
I can't
On
wait.
Yellow.
Yeah.
What did he say? What?
Oh yeah.
I'm gone.
Like that.
God damn
Am I
it.
really-
Okay. Anyways, moving on.
Mhm.
Moving on. Let's take a look at the
was funny.
next thing here. Okay. So this is kind of an interesting one, right? Whether essentially central banking has accelerated societal dumbing down, right? And that is an interesting point because I do think that central authorities have helped enable our laziness. I mean, it's right. Like I've said this before, and I know lots of people disagree, but too bad. I believe that the human condition at its core is laziness. And so this, believe it or not, drives a lot of our need for technology and all of this stuff because we essentially want to do less, while being able to do more. So yeah, I mean that this is just, to me, it's a no-brainer. What are your thoughts? Start with
Yeah, I mean, dumbing down central banking when you outsource thinking, which is essentially what that is. The central bank is saying, we'll own your money and you're going to pay us for it. You're going to pay us for it with inflation, with or monetary debasement. We're going to control things that we shouldn't be controlling. And I think when people get comfortable with that, they tend to start, and you're essentially in a monetary prison. It's like, yeah, it's prison, but at least we know what we're dealing with. When we don't have this, then we have the unknown. Then we have the frontier, and people don't want the frontier. They want their walled gardens. They want bounds and constraints. People say that all the time. Like people like those controls. We've become less of a free society and more of a society about control. And it has to do with a lot of what our politicians are talking about nowadays versus probably 100 years ago or 150 years ago. And we listen to that, and we don't and like you said, it's comfort. So I do think that when Bitcoin does take over as a unit of account for the world, there's going to be some new challenges to face. But those challenges will lead to prosperity versus where central banks essentially lead to subjugation. Because someone will be prosperous because they have a money printer, but at what cost? And it's at the cost of the many for the benefit of the few. And we're close to the money printer as Americans, as Westerners. But I'm like, when you think about all the goods that we get from oppressed countries, the global South, you wonder how we get our fruit for so cheap. You wonder how we get our resources for so cheap. You wonder why, if diamonds are as valuable as they were, why the place where 98% of them come from isn't a first class country. These are the kind of things that make sense or don't make sense to when you think about it, but we kind of just are in, because we're in this mental and theoretical prison. We kind of just go with the flow. But when central banks go away, when these central authorities go away, and then we could truly have a free market economy, it's gonna, how much will pencils cost for us? Because we don't get our pencil wood from America. We get it from someplace in Southeast Asia. It's like these kind of things. We're gonna have to pay our fair share. And these countries that have these natural resources, or these countries that have this workforce that's young and is able to produce, they're going to benefit. And this great empire that we have covered by NATO or the West or America, it's a fiat and it's a false empire. And the free market will benefit the hard workers. It will benefit the honest people, and Bitcoin will accelerate that.
Straight fire, dude.
I'm sorry.
That was great. That was fantastic.
No.
I don't know why you're apologizing.
I don't know why either.
He's not used to it. He's not used to it.
Like, we just get
to
sit here and
topic him in the middle of that.
And we don't have to talk, and we get to be like, damn, he's saying everything we want to say right now.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's got a broken rib. So, hey, more power to you. Yeah, that's great. Maybe that's bad of us, Phil. Maybe we shouldn't be having the broken man doing all the talking. Oh my God.
Trying to make our points, but we're busy fighting with yellow. So,
yeah, I know. Seriously, that's some tough work right there.
It would be better if you stopped doing yellow jokes, because that's actually making me laugh. No, I'm just playing. I can handle it.
He's terrible. But Humble, any thoughts on the dumbing down?
Well, I mean, what I was gonna follow what you were saying, Ulrich, on, when you're talking about these things and you're trying to tell people, well, why do you think this is? Why do you think these economies are doing so poorly? Yet they have, when you were talking about diamonds and so on and so forth, like, well, it seems like they should be doing pretty awesome, right? And then you tell people, well, yeah, they don't even understand that we're the world reserve currency. And you explain to them that this is what's happening in other countries. And it's too uncomfortable for them to even think about. They don't want to think about us not being, they're like, so, okay, and these are people that you would think would be like, wow, that's really messed up that they're doing that to these countries, and these countries are so impoverished, and here we are living it up, right? But they don't say that. They're like, well, I mean, that's how we're able to live the way we live. And it's like, yeah, you're right, but look at the way everyone else is living. Like, don't you care about other people? I mean, this is like, it's hard to imagine what a world like that would look like, but wouldn't it make sense to give it a shot? I mean, it's very interesting, the comfort level that people have gotten used to, the consumerism that we have in the US and elsewhere. It's really sad. It's gone too far. It's just insane. And I do think, when you we have this privilege of being able to speak to people in these spaces on X and hear from people in different countries. And that's definitely part of the problem is we have our own echo chambers, right? But our echo chamber is actually global. Whereas people that you're talking to, like friends in the US, like most of them, they have no idea what's happening in the rest of the world. They just don't know. They don't know how lucky we are and how blessed we are to have a constitution. They don't know. They're just like, yeah, okay, it's just part of like life here. They take everything for granted. And it's a tough thing to deal with. And especially when you first learn about Bitcoin, you're like, what the heck? I mean, we've all gone down that road, and Ulrich, what was it? The Bitcoin Declaration of Independence. What was it that the project that you did?
The Declaration of Monetary Independence with Mike Hobart. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's important that we let people know, and I think we still try, but I think that the longer you've been in, you're just a little bit more mean about it. Like it's just like
because you've heard it all.
You
before.
lose patience.
You
lose patience.
Yeah.
Like that, because like that there's certain psychological walls that you hit with in these conversations where you're like, all right, we're not going to go any further, so there's no point.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of this frustration. But going back to both Ulrich and your point, right? This really reminds me of a book that I read, which I am looking for now. I think it's called The Most Dangerous Superstition, by Larkin Rose. And essentially, right, the big piece of that, right, is the myth of authority. And again, this goes back to undoing a lot of the learning that we had, right? Like it's, I've said this before, right? You go to school, you have authority at school as a child, right? You have the principal, you have the teacher, you have these varying layers of authority that you understand your role in that situation. Then you grow up, and then you go to work, and your boss is a function of that authority, right? The layers of management above you, which you again understand your role. And then, hey, when you go home again, you don't got to worry because there's the government authority, right? There's always this form of authority that comforts you, in this weird way, which in all honesty, it's so strange because the only thing that governing body does is enforce violence and collect taxes and provide a mediocre version of a service that they should be able to provide a much higher quality version of. But because people are people, right? And we each have individual incentives, even in a group, right? An individual is going to make an individual decision, even if that means deciding with the group, right? And oftentimes, when you get into the government, your role is not to starve yourself of resources, starve yourself of funds. Your goal is the complete opposite, right? To increase that control, increase the amount of resources that you can, the resources that you control and the amount of power that you exert, right? So it's the dumbing down, like that is by design. Because if you think about it, right? So this is gonna, again, more stupidity, but this is like a corny saying that I used to think of when I was a teenager, right? If you lean, you're destined to fall. And it's kind of the same thing with government, right? You're always leaning on these authority figures that are going to fix things in case things fall apart. So at some point, you're so used to it, all that has to happen is a slight shift, and you just fall right over. So I think there's some truth to that corny little saying.
Mm-hmm. Which is why it's stuck, because those things have those underlying
Yellow.
base truths that
Yeah.
almost can't ever be disproven. Not if you're
Such a
Michael
jerk,
Jackson.
Yellow. You're such a
love it.
jerk.
I love it.
Man.
Smooth criminal, man.
Good Lord.
Uh,
That's wonderful.
Will the panel cover the
wait,
controversial
yeah,
comments by
they don't. Nobody cares about the ECB anymore. That's it.
Lord have
If the
mercy.
ECB's out,
Talk about
Saylor's
that.
in. Okay,
All right.
ACP wants to hear about Saylor, so
I wanted to say one
you
thing.
asked for it. But hold on here. Go ahead, Humble.
I just, it's my age. I'm trying to remember what it was that I was going to say.
You and me both.
It was something I know, right? Like, God.
Once you cross 40, that Rubicon, not that Humble is 40. Not saying that. Just talk about me personally. Talk about me personally here.
I'm not wearing a hat because my gray hairs are showing. Not at all.
What hair?
Right.
This line keeps going back.
Oh my gosh. It was something about government. It was something you said before you said your statement that you said when you were a child.
My long rant.
Yeah, but it was like it was so perfect. It was a perfect lead in. Oh man. Okay, I'll think of it.
So do we continue on the ECB stuff, or do we talk about the Saylor interview?
Do we?
Oh, I got it.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, I know. Like, real quick. Okay, so the thing that you had said, it was something about government and carrying on and power, and that what I was thinking of is this video that I saw of this ex-CIA agent, and he was talking about how people commonly say, it's for the people, by the people. And he's like, that's not true. That isn't true, because the role of the government is to maintain its power and its status and the country. What happens if all of you guys disappear? Well, the United States still has to be the United States, and it has to maintain that power and authority. So the government's role is to maintain that, and it's not about you at all. As long as there's people that are in the government that can carry on and move forward, that's what it is, he said. And he's like, so the guy who said, no, it's, supposed to be for the people, by the people. The guy's like, no, dude, And it wasn't like he was hating on the government. He's just like, it is what it is. People shouldn't think that way.
Their vision is not aligned with that slogan. That's what you're saying. I mean, it's essentially what democracy is. The big D democracy. A lot of people have been talking about this, whether it's Mike Benz or what's his name, Eric Weinstein, kind of delineating the difference between what we understand as democracy and what these institutions that the state is defending in order to preserve its authority. And if we go into that, we might as well talk about Saylor, because it's going to be a lot less long-winded than that topic. But I will say that I'll be doing a video series on democracy versus democracy in the coming quarter. Probably a 3 or 4 parter. It's going to be deep. But yeah, those are the kind of things, just like you said, Humble, like and just like Phil always says, the incentives of individuals, institutions, they're not always lined up towards the marketing product towards the marketing that we're used to hearing as we're growing up. Like, these people are out there to work out their own incentives. And if that means that they want to stop every single person from buying a single Satoshi, circling back to the ECB, by writing academic papers and making these stupid ass formulas with death by variables. Like, how many variables were in those formulas in that paper if you read it? I'm like, no one gets this, but that's the catch. They don't want people to understand. They want to confuse people so much and then say, don't worry, I'm a doctor professor, trust me. And then the normies will say, oh yeah, I should trust him because he said Bitcoin is bad and those Bitcoiners are bad, so it must be. They're going to get people. They're going to get some people. Some people they'll turn off. Some people they'll keep in their prison. But the catch is, they're working out their incentives. You have to work out your own individual incentive. Are you better off listening to them, or are you better off buying the hard money that's not going to debase as they wreck you with their inflationary policies?
Yeah, very well said. And I have one last thing to add before we dive into, apparently we're going to be changing gears here, and we're going to talk about the Saylor stuff. But I just wanted to touch on one last thing about what you said here, right? And it has to do with that whole myth of authority and what you were just talking about, right? Where essentially a credentialized person writes something up which other credentialed, trusted individuals also endorse, right? Which gives it the, the borrowed credibility that it needs in order to gain traction, right? And all of that, right? Like that is the myth of expertise. And I say it's a myth because of this, right? An expert isn't supposed to be an expert because what they say is law, right? Like I say this and that's what it is. The expert is supposed to know enough about the topic to talk about it critically, right? To actually criticize the topic and have a proper open conversation about the topic objectively because they are an expert, right? They're supposed to know enough in order to have those discourses. And we've somehow forgotten completely about what expertise really is. And now it just becomes this whole, this is, look at my credentials, right? Look at all the paperwork. Look at all the stuff I've done. This is what I'm saying. So do what I say. And this is where it's completely insane. You know what I mean? Like the conversation has shifted. And I think that people maybe don't recognize that the conversation has shifted. They don't even realize that they're just trusting the experts, so to speak, right? So anyways, I have a hard time with that. And especially also in the field that I come from, where being an expert simply just meant that like you were the person exposed to a specific topic. Boom, that person's the expert. If you think for a second that in other fields, expertise is not conferred in the same bullshit way, you're very mistaken. Okay, so anyways, okay, switching gears away from the expertise stuff. Let's talk about the Michael Saylor stuff because
so is this the same old like interview with Michael Saylor? The capital,
this one.
That people are crypto anarchists, or is it something
I think
new?
I'm thinking. I mean, I haven't seen a new interview with Saylor, but in my eyes, I don't know if ACP can chime in the chat, but I believe that it is the same conversation where they show that clip where he essentially demonizes self-custody, so to speak, but not directly. And of course, there's a whole bunch of misinterpretations on both sides of the argument. So, yeah. In terms of what Michael Saylor said, I mean, I did a clip about this already and got roasted for it, but essentially, I think it's the most prudent way to look at it, at least in my eyes, where I don't end up getting burned, is that I understand he is a cheerleader. I understand that he has a different timeline than I do, different goals than I do, even though, like, yes, I understand everybody has the goal to, NGU, so to speak, but we don't all exactly have the exact same goals, right? And he is also the CEO of a company that's been around for like 20 years, which, to be perfectly honest, yeah, they have decent earnings, but they ain't no Microsoft. Not that I like Microsoft, but if we're talking about earnings and we're comparing companies to companies, like, they're not like massive. They're not like massive earners, so to speak. And if it wasn't for Bitcoin, my take, Ulrich. If it wasn't for
their earnings
Bitcoin,
per share is so bad. It's not even funny because they've been essentially inflated because of their Bitcoin holdings. And that's all I'm going to say. But continue. It's your turn still.
No, but I was just finishing up. But yeah, it's exactly that, right? Is that, he essentially has figured out a way to further monetize his business, which again, that's what he does. This is his job. He's the CEO. For the people who don't know what a CEO does, part of being a CEO is being a salesman. That's why a lot of these guys look like salesmen. I met the CEO of the company I worked for, and if I didn't know he was the CEO, I thought he'd be trying to sell me a car. Okay. And that's kind of the point, right? Like, is that they are salesmen, and as a result, right, they are going to do their job. And he has now found this incredible opportunity. It's funny, Matthew just said Saylor is a bear. I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that. I think you're right. He is kind of a bear. But the point is that he's a salesman and he's got to sell that company. And he just found this amazing way to create more shares and make the price go up. Okay. A lot of times companies are diluting their shares just to stay afloat. Okay. Indeed,
That's
of
right.
course, there are companies who do, splits and stuff like that, and that are increasing. Obviously, I'm not talking about the Microsofts, Adobes, and eBays and PayPals and stuff like that. The majority, unfortunately, a lot of companies go the opposite way. They are issuing more shares because they don't have enough money to run operations and they need more runway.
That's right.
That's not his problem, right? Like, that's not his issue. So my whole thing is this: we can be happy that Michael Saylor is saying all the good things about Bitcoin, right? Maybe not all the good things, because I don't like the way he frames self-custody and core devs, but he's saying many good things about Bitcoin to in a lot of public outlets, and that helps Bitcoin in terms of the overall reach and public perception. So for that, I'm going to give him that, but I'm not going to sit there and cheerlead this guy, because he also has some very controversial views, and he hasn't hid about the fact that he believes in the dollar hegemony. And the last piece I want to say about this is this: some people have said to me, well, it's 5D chess. He's saying what he's got to say to keep people away. The 5D chess is that you think he's saying this to keep people away. That's the fucking 5D chess, okay? Anyway, sorry.
Oh man. So I know that.
Sorry, I can't buy it.
That was good.
You're the broken man. So I don't know if people just kind of stopped following what Michael Saylor was saying, but on the 23rd, he said, he had to clarify things and said, I support self-custody for those willing and able, the right to self-custody for all, and freedom to choose the form of custody and custodian for individuals and institutions globally. Bitcoin benefits from all forms of investment by all types of entities and should welcome everyone. So, was that a clarification, or was that, oh boy, look at the community's reaction to this? You need to say something, who knows? But regardless, that's what he said on October 23rd.
In regards to that tweet, I mean, when he posted that, like, everyone was like, oh yeah, like, you really didn't mean what you said. And it's like, okay, everything is good. I mean, imagine an abusive husband where it's like he beats the hell out of his wife, and then all of a sudden says, I'm sorry, babe. And then it's like smiles because he's handsome. And then it's like everyone, and then he announces his sorry on Twitter, and then everyone says like, oh yeah, he's sorry. I think the first thing that he says is actually the truth. And it was funny. And 4 years ago, when he was being interviewed by Breedlove, he was saying all the nice things. As far as I remember, I watched that series, I thought 3 times. And I remember him saying like self-custody this, dollars dying that. It's like, oh wow, yeah, this guy's a Bitcoiner. Once Bitcoin got above 30,000, he started changing his narrative. He was interviewed he was on the stage at Bitcoin 2022, and they had to cut out what he said about Bitcoin as a medium of exchange. Because he was on stage with Peter McCormick and Zuby and Q, my guy Q from Bitcoin Ballers and Bitcoin Magazine. He was interviewing them, and Peter McCormick said the right thing. Ironically, Zuby said the right thing, and they just cut Saylor's part out. So what does that say? They're asking, hey, medium exchange, store value, or both? They both said both. They didn't. You don't even hear about what Saylor says. It's clear.
Wow.
It's clear. That was on my. If you guys want to see me comment on that, that was my last video with Swan. So if you guys were to go to what is it called, Swan Originals, and find my piece on the conference, you could see me comments like, why did they cut that out? It's on YouTube. But yeah, whatever Saylor said about medium of exchange, it's redacted. So he's not comfortable with his own position. The people who are working with him, whether it's Bitcoin Magazine or if he goes on stage at a Swan conference, he's not okay with that being on record. So he likes to talk around the medium of exchange topic. In my opinion, what he's doing, he's creating, I think, what will be and mind you, in all honesty, I have stocks. Okay, I'm a Bitcoin maximalist, but guess what? I don't propagate, oh yeah, you got to buy MicroStrategy. I bought a little bit of MicroStrategy. I still have it. I'm going to dump it in 20 in a few months because I think it's going to be wrecked. I have minor stocks. I have Marathon, I have Riot. Why? Because I have a little bit of money in another color. That's it. I'm not telling people that they're evil because they're not Bitcoin only. I know there are people that are Bitcoin only, but Adam Back trades cryptocurrencies. Like, Samson Mao has an Ethereum video game. All these people do their own little things on the side. If you're propagating something that's saying this is the answer for the world's problems and it's Ethereum and you're propagating that, you propagating Solana. If you want to trade Solana on the side, Adam Back, go ahead. But now Michael Saylor has created, whether Michael Saylor or these quant bros have followed up with this micro strategy thing, and now it's like MicroStrategy is the answer for everyone's problems. Now you're going to trade your way up. Well, Bitcoin is supposed to be the easy solution for the garbage man, for the teacher, for the individual who doesn't have the time to sit in front of a screen and watch green candles and red candles. Bitcoin's supposed to be a simple solution. And now what is happening, we're creating this world where in order for you to be right, you have to be able to trade MicroStrategy right. And you see a whole bunch of Bitcoiners drifting into this world. This, in my opinion, what is a cult of a derivative maximalism. And it's, in my opinion, it's wrong. In my opinion, Saylor should be recognized for what he is. He's no different than Larry Fink. He's a CEO that has found an opportunity, just like you said, to increase the value of his company. And he's a president of the board of directors now. He's no longer CEO. But that's beside the point. He is working out his own incentives, and your incentives aren't the same. You as an engineer, as a teacher, even as a lawyer, you're just not the same as a multi-billion-dollar company CEO, and that should be okay. But that's what people say: crucify your freaking heroes. Don't let Michael Saylor run you into the ground, and don't let the quant bros who are propagating MicroStrategy running you into the ground because you think you need to turn into a trader overnight. Bitcoin still is the answer, and it will be the answer when Bitcoin goes down and MicroStrategy is contemplating how much Bitcoin they have to sell to stay afloat, because we're going to see a bear market again. Bitcoin is going to still be there. MicroStrategy will be wondering if it's still in existence or not. I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry. And
I keep on apologizing. I don't mean to be apologetic.
But while you were explaining that, Phil C, fellow Bitcoiner, he made another Phil. Yeah, there's a council of Phils, even though Walton doesn't want to acknowledge us.
Oh my goodness.
There's a council of Phils. But yeah, so Phil C said books will be written about Saylor and the ultimate BTC play, and then he said Saylor haters aren't grounded in reality. And I just want to point out, right, like, he's absolutely right about the fact that people are going to be writing books about that particular move, right? Because that is by far probably one of the easiest ways that anybody can figure out to save a company. I mean, for real, like if a company has some type of access to liquidity and they have long enough terms on their debt, right, that they have to pay back their debt, they have the terms are long enough. Bitcoin could actually save them until they can, essentially get their footing and then continue their business on. But I guess the point I'm just trying to make, Astro says there is some audio issues.
I'm hearing you fine.
Yeah?
But I did hear, I thought Humble was doing something weird a few minutes ago.
Oh, I moved my...
You sound fine now.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Is this okay, Astro?
Yeah. No, you sound...
Okay.
You're doing an audio test with Astro.
Testing, Astro testing. Can you hear me, Astro?
But yeah, so just to go back to Phil's comments, so like I do agree with him, like 100%. They're going to be writing books about that, and I also agree with that, right? The quote unquote Saylor haters, right? Like, it's like, look, he's playing the game, right? Like, I don't actually hate him. I know that people think that because I speak passionately about something, but like, I don't feel anything towards this human being. This guy is doing whatever it is he is compelled to do, and it's just like, it's great,
I mean, and again, I just acknowledge I
They're the
have
best.
MicroStrategies. I have MicroStrategy stocks. Like, I don't want it to fail, at least not until I sell it. You know, I'm trying to use that to potentially buy a down payment on the house. I don't want to touch my Bitcoin if possible. So it's like, it's like I got a few shares. I'm hoping that can be my first layer of liquidity, so I don't have to touch the things that are important to me. So I can, most important to me, which is my hard money. But again, like, it's not going to save. MicroStrategy isn't going to save the world. It's not equal to Bitcoin. You are trusting a custodian for that, and you're trusting that circuit breaker doesn't break the moment you want to sell. So it's like people who are expecting to make that record-breaking trade, they're going to be casualties, and we're going to hear about that as much as we're going to hear about the people who made bank. So proceed with caution.
Did Humble, did either of you guys mention his backtracking, his backfooting tweet about self-custody? Right, how he kind of like,
that's what she mentioned.
She mentioned it before, right? Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
No, exactly, right? So you could see that we did have some type of an effect. Like he did acknowledge and realize, so that's why, again, to the people that think he's playing 5D chess doesn't involve you backing off a comment. So
you
gotta put
you're
that
playing
out
poker, you're supposed to bluff all the way through.
Yeah,
like no. He was wrong. He was absolutely wrong. But guess what? He probably has to be wrong because he's 10 minutes from Langley. They're probably saying, Mike, you can't be doing that, man. You're going to ruin us. You can't tell everyone to just buy Bitcoin. You have to say it's a capital asset. You have to say it should be locked in storage in a Bitcoin bank where we can make interest on it. Because if this thing really does go to 10 million, if we don't make money, we're ruined. Why? Larry Fink was doing this before Michael Saylor did it. But like when BlackRock flipped and was the chief nemesis, and all of a sudden everyone is, oh my gosh, Larry Fink is our friend now. Like when he was our friend finally, all he said was capital asset, like hedge against inflation. I'm like, you gonna say anything about its use against, like, who's causing inflation, Larry? He doesn't want to say that. It's like, I see as something that will increase in value. Why would it increase in value, Larry? It's the same thing Fred Krueger does. I was on stage with him right next to Corey Clipston, and of course I wanted to ask, why, Fred? And he's coming around slower, but he's still a goon, like a quant boy goon. And that's fine. People are going to be like that. But it's like, you have to go down. Phil's an engineer. I'm an engineer. You have to go down the 5 whys. If you get to the root cause analysis of why is it going up in value, you realize that the system that you made your way in is actually full of shit.
Yeah. And Astro just added, he's not our friend.
He's not our friend, but
yeah, but he's in it for the 100x.
Yeah. Oh, Krueger or Saylor?
Saylor.
I thought he was talking about Saylor.
Yeah, both of them.
Yeah.
All of them. Everyone.
Me?
Yeah. I mean, maybe not 100.
Not very nice.
Everybody.
Well, at least we came here. We came here for the games. We stay for the revolution.
Yeah.
No one should pretend that they aren't here in some great extent for greed. Like, no one should pretend that, because that's what this is, right? Like, it's like, if greed drives altruistic behavior, then so be it, right? But I mean, the reality is that I think too, and I know it sounds bad, right? But the point I'm trying to make is that we're all trying to, essentially, every single person is trying to better their lives, and every single person is, or at least for the most part, if you're knowledgeable about it, trying to command your own time. And to me, like, this is part of how I found, I mean, I should say, after I started using Bitcoin, that's part of how I found what Bitcoin was.
Yes, sir.
Really? I don't let other people talk?
No, I was laughing at that one.
I'll take a moment to say something, if I can remember what it was that I was going to say, because Phil was so long-winded that I think I forgot. No, sorry, y'all are doing that. It's not funny. Mm-hmm. Okay, so like I hear that statement a lot, where people are like, don't tell me you're not here for number go up. You're just here for, they don't say greed, but they say same thing, right? Yeah. for me, it's like I am so here for the revolution. Like that is what I'm always thinking about. For me, it's like hard to grasp what it might feel like to like, I know it's number go up and that's going to happen. Am I going to see it? I'm not really sure, but I hope I will. And so I think that's something that Michael Saylor did right when he said, he's got the website hope.org or hope.com, maybe as both of them. I don't know. It's like, that's what it is. It's like you do have this hope. So you're here for the revolution. I'm here for the revolution. That's what is so awesome to me, because I found it at the right time in my life. And yeah, I greed it's a hard word for me to accept, to be honest. Number go up is hard for me to accept that, because to me it's hope. Maybe it's like a psychological thing I tell myself. Maybe I've programmed myself that way. I don't know.
5 whys. What do you hope for?
Yeah, no, I understand that involves greed, right? I mean, it's a level of being comfortable, right? Being able to have not to be in debt, not to be a slave to the system, correct? And to help other people, and you can't do that as much financially when you're, in this fiat world. So. Yeah, I'm not saying you're wrong. It's just something I'm thinking about now. Like, have I changed that word in my own mind so it doesn't sound so bad? Or is that really, do other people kind of have that mindset as well? I'm curious.
I like what Phil C just said. Exactly. I don't like my money stolen from me. And the problem is that people, the people who believe in modern monetary theory, gosh, it's the ibuprofen. People who believe in this collectivism at the state level, this where we need a central bank. They are saying it's okay for your money be stolen because the big government is going to work out everyone's incentives or the best way for everyone because they know what's best. And that's the problem. We take away the individual and we have this collective idea where we put these kings, we put these queens, these elite people in these positions and run our lives for us. And Bitcoin works against that a little bit. Other things work against that as well. Second Amendment rights, constitutions, small government. But Bitcoin is that one big thing that works against that clearly. And, it makes us more voluntary. You can own more of your money so you can give it in the way you see fit, not the state. And in order for that to happen, guess what? The state has to stop taking from us. In order for the state to stop taking from us, it has to have the power, has to have less power to force us to give them our money. The state has to become weaker so that we can be stronger. It is truly a give and take. The United States is going to get stronger on the Bitcoin standard so we can be strong. No, it's like, no, we, the individuals, become stronger. And from that standpoint, wherever we are, we individuals who understand that, we can enable the community that we are a part of, whether it's a city, a country, but we can't be stronger unless the individuals are stronger. That's why you have, for instance, African nations, you have these, their whole demographic is full of 20 and 30-year-olds ready to work, but they're coerced by colonialism and imperialism and bad money. And these people can't even be as productive as they can be. Because why? Because all these forces against them that's stopping them from working. It's really a bad world that we are in. We can be in such a better world if Bitcoin is allowed to persist. And the ECB is working against us right now with this damn paper.
Oh, I know. I mean, like, if you think about it, these programs that the government has, let's speak primarily to the US here, like people who are on food stamps and people who are, just the different programs that you can be on where it's like you can stay on it for a very long time. That's my understanding, right? I think that's a general understanding. Like the qualifying to qualify for these programs, it's kind of crazy. And so people become dependent on these programs. Like, how many nonprofits would start up if we didn't have the government providing these programs and then having these incentives where they can keep people down or certain ethnicities down because they're like, oh, well, if we do this, then this will happen and it's going to benefit us. And, we don't care about them. Like like, let us take care of each other. People want to give, they want to help, but they've just really taken that ability out of our mind that it's even a remote possibility. They want you so dependent on the government, like only we can help you. And that's bullshit. It's not true. That's what we are for. You naturally want to help. And I think it goes even further with people that are in these situations where they feel like they need to be dependent on the government system when it comes to food stamps and so forth. Like, they don't feel like they can ever help anybody else. Like, how does that feel? That's got to feel really awful. I mean, it's something that we need to do as humans. And when you feel like you don't have that ability and you feel like you're a victim because the government has essentially said you're a victim, and we're going to remind you that that you are a victim. And every time that it seems like it's getting a little bit better here and people are accepting you, no, we've got to take that back. And we have to make sure we remind everybody you're a victim and you're going to stay a victim. And it's a really sick and twisted, evil world, which, that's a horrible thing to say. Some people don't appreciate hearing that because there's light in the world as well. But, people have to step up and do something about it, like acknowledge what's actually happening around us. And I think that's, by talking about these things and by pushing back on things like what the ECB is doing, it's like, no, like, we're calling bullshit on this. Don't. I don't know.
Yep.
I'll say I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No, I was waiting for that. I knew you were gonna.
Yeah, and the only one who hasn't said. I don't think Phil. Have you said he's Canadian? And I don't think he said sorry as much as we have. Or maybe
I'm saying sorry because I know that he's Canadian, so I'm projecting.
All right.
You can feel the apology.
I mean, humble.
Right?
You're Northern American as well.
Yeah,
you're right across the football throw away from the border, damn near. Yeah.
I know.
Feel those apologies.
Yep.
But yeah, like going back to this, the whole, because we kind of went off into the weeds of Bitcoin philosophy and all that stuff. But just to go back to the Michael Saylor stuff. Right now we've got now we've got Microsoft. I don't know when that vote is. I don't know if it was today or if it's on Wednesday for the board of directors. I know the board of directors recommended no, right? And of course, right, you go take a look at their you go look at their top institutional holders, right? Vanguard is number one. Indeed, BlackRock is number two. But guess who's down the list? JP Morgan. So you've got two really big institutions that hold a lot of shares that adamantly publicly hate Bitcoin, right?
Didn't Vanguard's CEO get fired because they failed on they dropped the ball on the ETF? They said we're not doing the ETF, and dude got fired like 2 months later.
We as Bitcoiners would like to believe that that's why he got fired, right? Let's be honest. But really, they didn't tell us that was the reason. I personally would like to believe that was the reason.
It would be nice, but yeah, no.
I'm
Vanguard,
living in my fantasy. Okay, this is my hopium. So
I'm so happy with my job. My job is being bought out by another company, and now my 401k is leaving Vanguard and going to Fidelity. I'm ecstatic. I can't. Once I became a Bitcoiner and realized like all the bad things that Vanguard was doing. Well, I guess once these institutions started getting involved, and I was like, Vanguard's doing that, and I'm with Vanguard. It just made me like throw up in my mouth. So I'm going to Fidelity. They're much more Bitcoin friendly, even though, again, all incentives and everything, everyone has their incentives, but I'm just happy to be not associated with them anymore.
Well, ACP thinks Vanguard is going to capitulate eventually.
They got a lot. I hope so, but whatever. I won't be with them.
The reason why I brought up the Microsoft stuff, right, is because so Microsoft actually is what Ulrich, you and I've had this discussion before. Microsoft actually is a extremely, well, maybe it was you and me, maybe it was somebody else that had the conversation. I don't know. Always talking about Bitcoin, right? But essentially, my point is that Microsoft is an extremely profitable company, a company that is, it's no longer a growth company, right? It is a large cap, quote unquote, growth company that pays a dividend. So that kind of puts it in the category of a boring dinosaur. The reason why I'm explaining this is because they are extremely profitable. So what happens when Microsoft holds as many shares as MicroStrategy, and now all of a sudden You've got this exposure. See, and this is why I think like the whole, people, again, this goes back to the cheerleading of specifically the person, right? Michael Saylor. That's why it's like it's not good to cheerlead for individual people, because now all of a sudden Microsoft comes along and offers you a better deal. Now all of a sudden Microsoft is the better MicroStrategy because, dude, they're paying you a dividend. Man, he's paying you a dividend, and on top of that, they actually do make money, like real money.
What's that meme? What's the meme with the guy with his girlfriend and he's like,
yeah, exactly. Yes, that's the meme.
Hey, maybe I'll have my first meme. I never meme. Oh my gosh, I'm going to get likes.
Do it. Okay.
Yellow,
that's it.
None of y'all guys.
Jonah wants me to stop talking too. Everybody wants me to stop talking, so I'm going to stop.
Who started this rumor?
I'm a
I bet it was Yellow. I think Yellow did it. He's causing all sorts of trouble today.
No, I'm talking way more than all y'all.
I know
what's happening.
I guess you're untouchable because
I don't like. Yeah, I don't hang out enough. People are like cautious of offending me. They think I may have thin skin. Y'all can talk shit about me too. I don't care.
Yeah,
I don't care. Try it. Whatever.
Well, this is Bitcoin, so they're not gonna. No one's gonna wait for your invitation. It's just Ulrich. It's just happening, man. It's just happening.
Oh my gosh.
Astro. Yellow was in here earlier and had to tell everybody about that. Okay, so
hey, look, now I'm getting crap.
I'm doing cross-platform stuff here. Good lord.
But yeah, so I think that MicroStrategy is not going to adopt it anytime soon. I think that
Microsoft.
Microsoft. Yeah, I think that those proxy votes are really, really strong, and so I just feel like a lot of people, like I have shares of companies, and they send the little papers like, hey, vote on this. Like no one's gonna. I never vote. Like I got 100 shares of something. I got 300 shares of something. What? I just feel like my vote. If my vote doesn't matter in the presidential election, it really doesn't matter for those, for those shareholder meetings. That's how I see it. So I just feel like Microsoft is going to sit on the sidelines. They say, hey, we're too big to fail anyways. If the dollar goes down 50%, we're still going to be worth more than every other company who is essentially fiat heavy. So, I think we're going to see like another half cycle before people start saying, maybe this thing is real. They got to see six figures before they start. They got to see a $3 trillion asset, before they start saying, okay, we were wrong.
So,
of course,
going back to Vanguard, I'm sorry, were you going to say something, Phil? Go ahead.
No, I was just going to. We were getting a question from in the crowd here. Mr. Link wanted us to talk about Ross and how only Trump and how essentially Trump is the only chance. But here, let's say what you got to say, Humble, and then we'll pivot to that topic before we wrap up.
Talk about.
All right. I was just, when it comes to Vanguard, they've got indirect exposure, through MicroStrategy.
Yeah, they all do.
By having an ETF, do they just have so much exposure essentially that it would just be stupid of them to have an ETF? Because, it's not stupid, but like they don't want to be. Yeah.
To your point, right? Whether it's fake, whether it's Bitcoin that they don't own through MicroStrategy or it's Bitcoin that they don't own through an ETF.
That's right. Bitcoin they don't anyways, own. Right. So, it's all the same.
Yeah, yes.
I guess in this case, I'm being disingenuous because the ETF, the companies like BlackRock and Vanguard, they are actually supposed to be purchasing Bitcoin, right? And we do have evidence that of their on-chain wallets containing Bitcoin, so they would actually benefit from holding Bitcoin. It would be better for them to just have MicroStrategy shares, So
wasn't Vanguard added as like a custodian or something for BlackRock when it came to their ETF? There was something, I remember there was something in the news like when the ETFs came out that Vanguard, people were like, why is Vanguard on there? Like, I swear. Wasn't it Vanguard? Remember there was like some.
I would think Fidelity, because Fidelity has their own vertical stack. Right. Okay. So they can custody their own Bitcoin. And technically they can actually offer custody services for others too. So I don't know, maybe it was Fidelity, but I don't recall that piece of
Okay.
news.
Okay,
Yeah.
maybe it was Fidelity then. Yeah.
So,
All right.
so what was this question with Ross
Okay,
and Trump?
so Mr. Link said, talk about Ross and how only Trump is the only chance. All right, let's
To
dive into
free
the
Ross? Is that all
yeah.
we're talking
I'm
about?
assuming
Okay.
he's talking about the free Ross. So who would like to start? Who would like to start?
I'll start. I don't really
Do you agree
focus.
or disagree?
Okay.
Ross Ulbricht. I mean, like, I don't think Kamala really cares. I think that Ross Ulbricht is a libertarian focus point that Trump has seemingly that interest group has obviously drifted towards Trump more to Trump than to Kamala. I mean, I don't think Kamala cares about that type of stuff. I don't think Trump cares either, but I think the people who are involved with him, obviously they got Trump to go talk to us about our little Bitcoin at the Bitcoin conference. And I just feel like right now with how far left the Democratic Party has gone, I mean, you see all the people. I mean, Trump at one point was a Democrat 15, 20 years ago. Elon Musk was a Democrat. Tucker Carlson was a Democrat. What's her name? Tulsi Gabbard was a Democrat. All these people were for RFK was a Democrat. All these people were essentially moderate Democrats, and the left and the Democratic Party went far left. And these people said, and Elon Musk was too. And it's like, hey, we're still here. It's the old meme where it's like they went over there and we're still here. It's like we're closer to what the old right wing was. And I think the libertarians will probably say the same thing. I think that, yeah, Ross ain't going nowhere without Trump.
Yeah. I'm going to obviously, I do have to agree with this based on every single thing that I've seen. Unfortunately, what Ross did, and I understand, right? I understand that people have this idea that he supposedly hired, people to have people killed, even though he was set up for that. And of course, I know that there's varying points on that story, and some people believe that that story is true. Other people believe that that's false. I don't even care about that. Okay. What's really important in this whole matter is that Ross set up a system that was completely outside the legacy finance system, and it worked perfectly without any kind of regulation or government intervention. And, the government doesn't like competition, right? Like that's why money, oh my God, the guys who fake money. I'm like totally drawing a blank. Counterfeiters. Thank you. That's why counterfeiters are so heavily prosecuted. Like the government doesn't like competition, and it's very dangerous. So what Ross did, right? Like I understand again about the whole he supposedly hired people, to have people killed and everything, and then we can all argue because those were FBI agents that he hired. So you can also argue that he was entrapped. But my point of it is that putting that stuff aside and just simply looking at the marketplace, what he did was incredibly dangerous to the people in power. And so I do agree with you. I believe that Trump is his only chance. The only thing I don't like, and it has nothing to do with Trump, it just has to do with my lack of my distrust of authority and my distrust of certain powerful circles. I just think that like once he gets in power, I don't know if he'll do it. I don't know if he'll commute his sentence. I'm afraid that once you get up into those positions, and I understand that he's loaded already and all that stuff, but something happens, like some type of a mind virus.
It may not even be as much of a mind.
But
it may not be as much of a mind virus.
I just hope he does it though.
It could just be the blob, the deep state, whatever people. Hey, it's like, Mr. Trump, I know you promised this, but we're going to brief you on these matters, and we strongly recommend that you not follow through with this promise. And it's like there are people that unelected bureaucrats that are going to be in his ear that aren't here right now, and it's like not in his ear right now because he's not in the Oval Office. And those people become a variable for his decision making. And so he can promise things, and he may even say, hey, I want to follow through my promise, sir. we're going to give you some top secret information, blah, 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 and could change his mind.
Right. Like it's a matter of national security. You can't do it.
Yeah. But I mean, look, to Mr. Link's point, right? I'd rather Trump over Kamala. So, it's like, yep, that's what it is. We went there. We went into the politics.
Yay! Now I can be far right on this.
And now we're gonna sign off. So thank you.
Go there tomorrow.
It's like we drop the bomb and then we leave. All right, take care.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, sorry.
Funny.
Mr. Link was pressing. He was pressing.
I'll tell you this: I can't. There's no point of voting in California, anyways, because they're so far left. And honestly, I've voted once in my life, and I don't even remember what year it was, but I was never a voter in the first place. Like I was always kind of like, yeah, it doesn't seem like it really matters to me. Like I was almost like that dynamic of where I was a Bitcoiner. I was like this freedom focused or freedom maxi before I was actually there. I just had that native tendency. Like I'd never really believed in the voting process in the first place. It's like, why? It's like, it doesn't seem like they seem like they're going to do whatever they want to anyways. What's the point? So.
Well, did you see, just real quick, I don't remember what state it was, but that these boxes that people are supposed to turn their ballots into, freaking on fire. Like it's on fire. Like,
oh yeah, Washington.
That's a good idea.
So Mr. Link said not true. I'll say this because I'm in California. I'm generally conservative. They're gonna they out the left wing out rules the right wing 2-1. If I was in Pennsylvania, I'd probably be more political. If I was in Ohio, I'd be more political. But anyways, that's just me. That's just me.
I hate politics. I just hate it. I hate the divisiveness that it creates. I hate this idea of us versus them. I think it's always us versus them. So, and when I say us, I mean individual, right? The individuals versus the conglomerate that is the quote unquote government. That's all there is. There is only us versus them. There are all of these parties and stuff. So it's just, I hate that this divisiveness is created. I hate that it's propelled. I hate that we all partake in it. Even when I was a kid and I was growing up in Canada and I was paying attention to politics and stuff, and I mean, Canadian politics are boring AF. Like here in the States, politics is a good
wild
time. Dude, it is awesome. It is like there is so much going on. There's so much controversy. There's so much mudslinging in Canada. It's like, oh, that person spent like $50 on a taxi cab, and the other one's like, oh, they bought some maple syrup. Like nobody cares. Okay, like for real, nobody cares. Like I never watched a debate in Canada where I was like, whoa, what are we gonna do?
I've never heard Phil's Canadian accent so thick. That shocked the hell out of me.
it's like, but here it's like super polarizing, like everybody, it's like I've seen families ruined, man. There's people that won't even talk to each other over this. It's fucking fake.
Yeah.
It's not even real. It's an illusion. These people are all part of the same clubs. You know what I mean? And then you've got these family members that are like, I'm never going to talk to my sister again. Over this?
But think about it. When we were growing up, it's like there are two things you don't talk about: politics and religion. What do? We started talking about politics and religion. Like maybe they were right, but I mean, but they're not. Like you want to be able to express yourself, and
that's the catch. That suppression is what creates the relationships built on lies. And like the thing is, like we have our worldviews, we have our ethics, and those types of dynamics. Oh, don't talk about this. I live in that world, being in Los Angeles, where it's like if I'm a conservative, I can't really voice my opinions. My friends I grew up with will ostracize me, and I in multiple times. I mean, I can watch my Instagram follow tick down, like literally overtly tick down if I were to post anything bad, not even pro-Trump, but anti-Kamala. So these kind of things are real, especially in echo chambers where you're a one-sided state like California. You feel like you're a second-class citizen. So anyways, we're, I mean, it's political season, the election's around. Hopefully we won't have to talk about this stuff too much
so
more.
soon.
It's gonna be
You know what's great? On our next special, we won't have to talk about it already.
we
On the next
will.
one, we won't have
That's
to.
No, we
right.
will, because they're not going to know who's president yet. They're still going to be counting votes. They're
Oh,
Maybe we'll
that's
just
true.
see everyone
And
in
there'll be some
February.
controversy, right? There'll
Mhm.
definitely be some controversy.
Totally.
Uh,
So Rhino Bitcoin, the cat's name is Satoshi. So we call him Toshi. That's the cat's name. He's a lovely cat. Just wanted to address that because he had asked.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think we've made it this far without
100
ruining
minutes.
people's lives. Huh?
I know.
100 minutes, and 28 people are watching right now. I mean, I think we're pretty much ending. And before Phil signs off, I just want to thank everyone for joining us. And I've been having some, not issues, but like a little bit of a not reservation, what was the word? Like just kind of deep thought about what the Bitcoin space is, especially with all these MicroStrategy maxis coming out, these quant bros. And when I see the people that are in this chat over the last 100 minutes, I can just say like, hey, these are the people that I signed up to be a part of. That this is the community I signed up to be a part of. When I put out a video or used to write essays, like I was reaching out to you guys, and so you guys are my real friends. Phil Humble, Walton, who's sleeping right now. You guys are my real friends. And I just appreciate the support that you guys give this channel, and continue to love this channel because it's one of the few true signals left in the Bitcoin space. So
It's very true.
anyways,
Very true.
I really appreciate that. Humble, any last thoughts for before we sign off?
Boy, let's see. I did, and then I see yellow pop up again.
Yeah, of course, Yellow's back. He's gonna make fun of us again. He's mostly making fun of you though, so I'll kind of take it because
that's totally fine. I mean, whatever.
he gives me a hard time, so I appreciate it.
I know I'm small, Jedi. Okay, there's some I had technical difficulty. You're lucky you can see the small version of me right now. Okay, we'll get it figured out.
He's gonna get it tomorrow though in the Good Morning Space, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Right now he feels like a champion. He's winning, but this is all temporary.
That's fine. Yeah. Oh, that's great. I think I do need some bobbleheads. That'd be great. Wonderful. Do I nod my head too much? Now I'm going to be self-conscious of that. Is it because I'm small or is it because I don't know? Anyways, I don't want to carry on because my battery is low. Like you probably won't be able to see more in a second. But like the thing that you said, Ulrich, there's a lot of changes happening right now. With the Bitcoin space, they want to say there's not a community. Well, you can see people kind of branching off into different things that they really care for. You've got the MicroStrategy maxis and so on and so forth. So I think it's kind of it's definitely an interesting time to be here. Guys who have been around for a lot longer. You've probably seen something like this happen before where, you find your people and, I'm glad that we've got these people because I do love you guys. You are loved.
I appreciate it. Absolutely. Awesome.
What does small mean? What is small?
Well, hopefully Jedi's going to put it in there. I know I've read it before.
I think he's trying to sound like a
thing.
person or something.
A meme thing.
It's cool.
Oh, I'm so behind. Anyways.
I just look them up when I don't know them because I'm 40 behind. I'm 45. Right? So I don't pretend. Like I'm not sitting there like, yeah, I know what you're talking about. I have no clue. And I'll just be like, yeah, I don't know what that means. There's no shame.
Oh, it's a cute small. Okay, yeah. Oh, small.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
No, take the testosterone supplements for crying out loud. Yeah, people are like, all of a
Speaking of that, for 3 Bitcoin, there is a get together in the desert. Okay, we'll leave it there. We will not talk about that.
Man.
I know. We could just talk forever about all the drama.
Why are you mentioning them? My God. All right.
Okay, we'll stop. All right, guys, I have no final thoughts because as Mr. Link alluded to, I don't let people speak, and I said too much. So, guys, thank you, everybody, for joining us on this special live episode of Pleb Underground. Then They Fight You. We really appreciate it, and we will catch you all on the next one. Have a great evening. Peace.
See you guys.
Take care.